mini rollout of our fall plan for high school 2020. So we talked about it yesterday. We're going to be, everything's going to be online for the fall at a minimum. And so what does that mean? We are putting together a fall program for high school that includes at least 10 events. There's 3 types of events, and I'm going to dig into those a little bit. And we have a couple different ideas and ways for you and or your delegation to engage in those events. So we're doing our best to kind of meet delegations where they are, depending on which Michigan State, my state Safe Start region you're in. Some of you are full online, some of you are going back in person, lots and lots of schools are hybrid. So we're trying to do our best to meet the delegations where they are in a way that gives everyone what they need. 2 of those 10 events, 1 or 2 of those 10 events are the fall conference content. So the content that you would expect to do, the content you would expect to do when you would have gone to fall conference will be part of this layout, the elections and that kind of thing. And so at that point, the whole package is still going to be that fall conference price, that $30 that you would pay for fall conference, and we'll dig a little bit into what that means. Okay, so those event types. Of the 10 events, we're going to have 3 types of events. They're all going to be Zoom calls or Zoom webinars, but there are 3 categories. The first category are basically youth and government meetings, right? So content around how to do Parley Pro or how to write a bill or what the leadership positions are. That programming will be offered by, what we're hoping to do is actually have your delegations be part of those conversations. So at the end of this session, we're actually going to ask, what is your delegation the best at? And maybe Petoskey and Black River will give the presentation on how to run youth governor candidates, right? Because they just won. So the first type of event is that youth and government programming. And as we get into the next slide and I talk about types of engagement, what we're really trying to do here is kind of offer a middle ground for delegations that plan to function pretty typically, that are able to have meetings and plan to have meetings. Your engagement might look a little different than a delegation whose advisor or school has said, listen, we're all online, there are no extracurriculars, you're not allowed to have meetings. So those students might engage with these activities a little bit more than students who maybe are in a delegation that's functioning typically. So there's some opportunities here to engage in the way that best fits your delegation. The second type of event are going to be Midwest regional calls. So at least once a month, we're going to have an event with, and I've listed the 6 other states, 6 other Midwest youth and government programs. So an opportunity to get to know kids from those YG programs in those states. I had to learn this when I first joined youth and government, but MO is Missouri, for anyone who's wondering. Maybe you guys are all pretty smart, probably knew that. But the directors in Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Missouri are all on board. And so the first one's going to be at the end, sometime near the end of September. And it's going to feature all of the regional youth governors, and it's going to talk about why we're excited about fall YG online and what it's going to look like from a kind of bigger picture standpoint. And then there's going to be breakouts where you will get to meet other kids from those states and just have some fun conversations and learn about their program and learn about them. So that's September's call. We have some other ideas of what October and November and December will look like. But we're going to engage the youth governors too in figuring out what will be fun. And then the third type of call is going to be an extension of the login, listen, and learn series. So we did 2 calls, a June and July login, listen, and learn series where we talked about bias in youth and government. We talked about racial bias. We really dug into some questions that you guys all said you wanted to talk about. So we're going to continue that series a little bit based on the session we just did, a little bit based on the DIG committee, and they've got a couple topics that they really would like to cover. And we're really going to lean into those topics once a month. So these are the these second two types of events. Again, maybe you're logging on individually, maybe you're logging on as a delegation, maybe your delegation leader's logging on and taking it back to the delegation. That's again that's gonna depend based on your delegation. And so what we'd like to know from you guys a little bit and start thinking about from you guys is, what are the things that are most important to you? What we think kind of initially, based on the other calls we've had and the other work we've done so far, we think that one of the things you guys like the most is connecting with each other, the small group settings. So our plan is for every call to have that as part of the engagement. Have breakout rooms and opportunities to meet new people, to talk to your old friends, to talk to people from other delegations and even other states. So we think that's a big selling point. But we also know that, youth in government's going to look different to you no matter where you are this year. It's going to look different. And for us, the worst thing that could happen is that because it looks different, it doesn't look exciting, and new freshmen don't join and new people don't join. And so our commitment is to create some spaces where you can create excitement and fun and enjoyment so that you can maintain that thriving youth in government delegation in your community, because that is really important to us. And we believe even more important maybe than it was before, right? Those connections with people, especially for those of us down in the regions in Southern Michigan where we still aren't able to gather with people. Being able to have those relationships has become more important to us. And then there's some things that being virtual allows us to do that we couldn't do before. So there's actually a lot of excitement here, right? Lexi talked about it yesterday. There's an opportunity to learn about new program areas that you didn't learn about before, and network with other delegations and build co-delegation MJP teams, or create lobbyist firms ahead of time and partner together, right? So there are some things that we can do because we've all leaned into this virtual a lot more than we thought we could, that we couldn't do before. And that's really exciting. And then on the how, I've talked about a little bit already, but it might look different for each delegation, how you're engaging. Is everyone from your delegation coming? Is just your delegation leader coming? Different people are coming when they can. And then the other piece is that we will do our best we don't want to just throw everything on the internet, because then what kind of value is there in showing up, right? We want people to show up live, because that's where you're making the connections. But are there pieces from our recordings that would be useful to put on, a bank somewhere where folks who couldn't attend can be engaging, or you can use those tools to go further. So there will be both live and recording tools afterward. I'm gonna take a quick pause here. I'm gonna talk about fall conference and exactly what that's gonna look like. And then I'm gonna talk about kind of some other components. But I just wanna pause for initial questions that are burning, or things that you don't understand at this point. And I'm a fidgeter, and so I threw my wedding ring on the floor. So hold on. There we go. You guys are all very shocked that I am enthusiastic with my hands.
Yeah,
all right, go ahead, Sia. Yep, go ahead, Sia.
What I have is, so let's say let's say I just go to the fall conference and bring things back for my delegation. Would I be the only one paying, or how would that sort of work? Or would the whole delegation have to pay to be involved in fall conference and for the elections and things like that? Or
yep.
for the recordings, to access the recordings, we would have to pay, because that makes sense.
Right. Great question. So we are kind of couching this in the bigger perspective of we don't know what spring's going to look like, right? We're running this with, within the confines, within the structure of we need to accomplish what we always accomplish at fall conference. And so that structure, as far as everyone who comes to fall conference pays the $30, that stays. So, it's your roster for fall conference is based on per person and that $30. Now, if all of those people don't necessarily engage in all the early stuff, as long as they paid the $30, they're still going to have access to it. And then no matter what the rest of the program year looks like, and we'll talk about that a little bit at the end, just like always, like previously, that $30 remains part of the overall fee. So, whether we're traditional in the spring or we're also virtual in the spring, like that $30 is part of the big picture. But it is, I think per person, in the same way that, when you could take things home from fall conference and have people who didn't come to fall conference learn about it, right? But those kids didn't go to fall conference and didn't vote. So it's registration payment equals your participation in voting in fall conference. All right, Mackenzie.
Will attending the Login, Listen, Learn and like the Midwest conferences have any effect on Premier delegation?
No, so Premier delegation will have an effect on participation as a delegation in fall conference. So as long as you, come to the fall someone from your delegation comes to the fall conference event, that checks the Premier delegation box. Nabila?
For co-delegation MJP teams, so like we could have different delegations. Like, how is that going to look? Sounds exciting.
Yeah, that's fine. We've always technically allowed it, but we've never really had to do it, right? And so we just, being virtual, having the opportunity to connect with each other and prep with each other. And then when you get there, you're just team number, right? 106, which is how you're referred to during the conference anyway.
So you basically would have to just like reach out to another school. A lot of times there's some schools that are interested in doing MJP but don't have enough people to form a complete team. So here's an opportunity to have two schools that want to do it to become one team, and then do practicing everything virtually through Zoom and stuff like that is the thought.
Yeah. Right. Kai?
I guess my question is, are you guys having meetings with our delegation leaders? Because I know I'm writing some stuff down and I'm going to have to bring some of this to my delegation, but I know for sure I'm not going to remember all of it. And people in my delegation are going to be asking questions and I'll be like, I know they said this, but I don't remember.
So two things. One, we're going to record this session and provide that to your advisors. Some advisors are here, we've invited them, but I've informed them that this session is going to be recorded. We're going to clip this out and push it out to delegation advisors. Also, Kai, do not stress. Your delegation advisor is on the committee that helped write it. Other questions? John and Lexi, you guys can't raise your hands, but you're at the top, so I don't know if you want to say something. I'm confused about. Okay. All right, so back to the fall conference. So the only thing, so two things, major difference for fall conference, other than like physically not going somewhere, is we're just going to run it once. The actual event where we pull everyone together and you do the Q&A with the candidates is going to be October 16th. It's still a Friday. We're going to work with we're going to try to poll the advisors and figure out, but we're thinking evening on that Friday is what's going to make the most sense, because it avoids having schools that aren't going to allow you to go, go to it during school, that kind of thing. But we're going to lean into a conversation with the advisors to make sure that makes sense. But October 16th will be that event. That will be the live engagement of you and your delegation or some other combination in a room doing Q&A with the candidates. There will be some live interaction around program areas. So the live reveal of the MJP case, the live reveal of the legislative oversight topic, those are going to be in real time. There will also be some pre-recorded kind of push out, all right, here's the NIF video, here, whatever it is. We don't know exactly what that looks like, but we're going to do, we'll do the Q&A, we'll do some program content, and then there will be candidate speeches based on your regions. The speeches themselves won't be live or the Parley Pro skits, but we will be doing a pre-event with all the candidates to record their videos. So instead of just, instead of saying candidates, you have to email us videos and we have to do it, we're going to do an event with the candidates and give everyone kind of an even playing field to give their speech, to do their skits, whatever it is. And then we will play that at the fall conference. At the end of that, polls will open, and there will be this says a 5-day window, 6-day window of voting. It will be secure. It'll be based on ID numbers, all of those things. You won't get to vote multiple times. No election fraud here. And then the following Saturday will be the announcement event. So it will be the following Saturday. It will be short. It won't be it won't even be probably more than an hour. But we do want to give the people who win an opportunity to gather either, again, depending on where we're at in the phases, maybe you can be with your delegation or whatever it is. But we just wanted there to be some hype and some excitement about the winners, especially because those candidates from your region that are going on to run for governor, you guys want to hear from them or see them and that kind of stuff. So that's the fall conference plan. And so that will be the 16th and then the 24th of October. And it will fall right within the confines of this 10 event window. Question.
So one thing with that, guys, about fall conference, especially with the whole way that we're doing elections, is we need you guys to encourage people in your delegations to run for leadership positions. What makes the most fun part about fall conference is the speeches and people running for positions. So as leadership kids, you guys should start thinking about running for committee chair, Speaker of the House, Lieutenant Governors. The more people we have running, the more entertaining and fun the fall conference will be. Youth governor, stuff like that.
And that will also, interestingly, possibly be pumping people up to run for office, and how to run for office virtually is the October Midwest Regional Call topic. So we are also going to help with that, and your youth governors are looking to help with that. Any questions about fall conference?
Lydia, can I just chime in for a second?
Go, Lexi.
Also, another opportunity is that it's not that it's ever easy, but it's a lot easier to run for a position and you're not standing up on a stage in front of people. So for those who may get nervous and choke up, it's another opportunity to just prepare even more and not have that same amount of pressure. So really, it's an amazing opportunity. And I don't want to say easy because it's not easy, but it's much easier for you to run. So.
Lydia, Emma, and Mackenzie have questions. They raised their hands.
Go for it, Emma.
It's just about, running for leadership positions. Are there, sign-ups or anything out there yet or not?
No, we just got to figure it out a little. Registration is slightly more complicated than previously, but we are hoping to open it by the end of the week after next. Hopefully sooner than that, but I'm committing to the end of the week after next.
All right, thank you.
Mackenzie?
What's this new elected position I see on the
All right, John, do you want to do the drum roll? You ready? Lexi, will you help him with the drum roll? Unmute.
Hey guys, let's do a drum roll for the new elected position.
Anyone? I can't hear any drum roll. I don't know how to do I have to go like that? Can you hear it? We are going to elect NIF POs, presiding officers for NIF. So I'll dig into that a little bit deeper, the details of it on my final slide with other program changes. But it's an opportunity, the NIF PO position has been previously held by an alumni. So don't tell them because we forgot to warn them that this is happening. I don't know if that's true. We didn't forget to warn them, but they knew we were talking about it. So they're going to be a little sad because it's not going to be an alumni position anymore. It's going to be an elected position like Speaker and Lieutenant Governor. It's going to be at the same level. So presiding officer for General Assembly in NIF. It's very exciting. Okay. Any other questions about fall conference? Cool beans. So just some additional components, and the last, there's a missing bullet point here that we're going to learn more about tomorrow, which is the youth governors have a couple components that they're excited about too. But we're going to incorporate some opportunities for advisors to connect. We plan to kind of lay them over so that it doesn't have to be, you know, an extra night of the week or whatever it is. So we're working with advisors to have that fit in, but you know, our advisor committee from the DIG committee has said, you know, could we create some opportunities for advisors to connect and network the same way we're doing for the kids? And we've said yes. We're hoping to incorporate a lot more alumni and their ideas in this. And then there's also some opportunities. We're laying out a similar plan for middle school. And so some of it may overlay as far as like, this is about Parley Pro, and we're going to do that event the same for middle school and high school with just some different breakouts. But there's also an opportunity for, you know, you to bring in if you don't have a middle school program, but you know someone, we could engage, or you could just if you're just dying for more opportunities to be in youth government, you can help with the middle school stuff. So that's the layout for 2020. For fall 2020. So here's the commitment. And this I didn't write on a slide, but I should have. Here, I'm gonna stop share so you guys can see my face while we say this. Our commitment is this. We don't know whether we will be in person in the spring of 2021. It's possible we won't be. But we are committed to going through this process, the 10 plus events, and then in December, evaluating where we're at, and then making the announcement in December. And so in December, it will be, are we going, you know, are we going to be able to gather in person? Yes. Okay, here's what it looks like. And it might look different. You know, it still might just be a one-day rally at the Capitol, right? Outdoor with it, who knows? But in December, we will say, okay, here is what we know about what's happening in 2021, and here's what the program will look like. But I want to couch expectations, because it's 100% possible we're going to get to December and we're going to say, all right, now we're ramping up for a virtual conference or 2 virtual conferences. And that's what it will look like. And so, but we're committed to that decision taking place in December. Miles?
Do you think it would be more interesting combining the 2 conferences into one, since it's going to be all online? I mean, like everyone gets to meet everyone from all conferences. And if like 2 years ago I had a buddy that started just going to the other conference and I kept going to the first one, I get to meet up with that buddy again somehow. So I think it would be pretty cool, just smash it all into one, get everyone together.
I love the positivity, Miles. I think it will depend on, I mean, if I'm being totally frank, probably there will be multiple events, but it'll be split more like there's, you know, there's a ledge and a legislative oversight event, and then there's an MJP event, right? From a capacity standpoint, if it's 100% online, the breakdown for us is probably program areas. And so what does that mean for friendships, right? And building that, or can we, you know, can it be, you know, it's one weekend, it's rounds 1 and rounds 2 and committees, and one's, you know, I'm just as an example, right? NIF and MJP all have different rounds, right? So, you know, maybe it's 2 weekends, but it's parts of the conference. So I like where your mind's at, and we'll keep redesigning to fit what makes the most sense. Mackenzie?
If we do end up with the traditional 2 conference model, when will delegations have to commit to early or late?
I don't know. I think that we certainly have a lot more flexibility with that. But traditionally, your commitment would have to be at fall conference, and that won't be true. We won't need the commitment that early. Sia?
So if it's completely virtual, again, for like both conferences, would we have the option to do like both conferences? Like,
same rule would apply, that you'd have to do different program areas, but
Yep.
yes.
Sure.
Yep. Other questions?
I have one.
Go ahead. who said I had one? Was it
Oh,
you,
I do.
Phil? Go
Yeah,
ahead,
I didn't know
Phil.
if someone else said something, but if it is virtual again this year, will MJP be an option?
Yes.
Okay.
They just ran a national mock trial program. It was similar to NJC, Phil. The Texas ran it, and it ran pretty smoothly. So we will be running an MJP one for sure this year.
Yeah. The main reason. Yep. Sorry. That's okay. We'll go Miles, then Pablo.
Just to prepare in case we do have an in-person traditional conference, I know that chance is very low. Do you think that we should like honestly try to say I want first conference or second conference at fall conference just to get an idea in case we can?
There's so many variables out there, Miles. I don't think it's really going to make a difference because if we can't meet in person, there's going to be limits on how many people we can stay in X places. So it's just a constant moving target because we wouldn't even actually have dates set or anything like that.
Okay, so it's all the work has to get redone anyway, so you might as well. Okay, all right.
Yep.
Pablo?
This is very off topic, but are there any Are there any updates on maybe Kona or National Advocacy Day?
That we don't. Yeah, Kona has no idea. At this point, National Advocacy Days is on hold. Maya?
So if there's like the traditional model, and like I know our school district is pretty strict and they probably won't allow us to travel, like will there still be opportunities for people that like can't come to the conference?
It's a good question and not one we've thought about. So I'll put it on the list of things to think about. But yes, I think in the same way that schools kind of offered, if it becomes possible to be in person, we will still want to make sure that folks who can't do that are engaged.
So like a follow-up to that is like, should I still encourage people to run because we probably won't be able, like just knowing our school district, we're not going to be allowed to travel?
Yeah. We would not. Yes, I think you should, because if there are still major school districts saying you can't travel or we can't gather more than 25 people indoors, we're not going to be in person. It's just not going to happen. But I'll give you another example of why it's important, why I would say yes, is because we're looking at middle school and offering we're going to do a middle school legislative version in the fall, so in traditional, but we're also saying, let's look forward to May and maybe we could have a rally at the Capitol where we do it's just a rally where we announce all the legislation and do Capitol tours, right? So even if there's if there's something in person, it will be additional to writing bills and debating bills and those kind of things, right? If there's any sense of the state's in different phases still, the only stuff that will be in person would be kind of additional.
Okay, thank you.
John, you had your check mark up.
Yeah, I guess I just want to say, at this point, like, we have no idea what spring's gonna look like. I know everybody kind of knows that, but there are so many possibilities of what could happen. And like, I understand the questions of what could happen in the spring, but like, we have no idea. We're taking this one step at a time. Like this plan for the fall, like the staff has put a lot of work into it, but like, it's kind of being rolled out to this group as it's also being rolled out to other groups that need to approve it. And so like this plan for the fall even is still kind of up for debate. And so while I understand the questions about the spring, I would somewhat encourage that we kind of focus on the fall. And if you guys have questions about the fall or kind of have suggestions, I think let's start there. And then once we're kind of a little bit more on common ground there, we can maybe kind of start thinking of hypotheticals and think of ways that we can best run the spring in different scenarios. So I do understand the impulse to ask questions about the spring though, but I think honestly, nobody has any idea.
Phil, you had a question?
Yeah, if we have spring conference virtually instead of in person, will it still cost the same amount or?
No. Yeah, it'll be comparative to what it actually costs us to run. Go ahead, Pablo.
So is there only one NIF PO or is there like multiple?
Well, there will be at least 2 per conference for now. Is the best way to answer that question.
The easiest answer for right now.
Yeah, it's a can of worms. No, we'll talk about, there's a whole slide of changes and I can talk about that a little bit more too. But as usual, John Lowry is right on point. I think we are hoping we're going to learn a lot as we do this. We already learned something, right? I sent those videos out this morning as a way to be like, look at what we did. And kind of we stumbled through the start of the virtual conference and then we really found our groove and we really had a great time on the national conferences and on the L3 calls. And now we've done a couple of, we've done this and we've done some other stuff with some of the delegation leaders. And so we're really excited about some of the options and we think fall could be really fun. And then we can kind of focus on, and we will simultaneously be focusing on what does spring look like, but we would like you to kind of be present with what we've got and enjoy it and help us make it better and help us figure out, have we given an option where your delegation fits in somewhere? We can't be everything to all people, right? But we can, if we can give your delegation a piece that makes sense, that makes your fall better and makes youth in government valuable for your school and your friends and your peers this fall, that's where we want to start, and then we'll just keep building from there. So again, Kai, we'll give you the last word before I jump into program changes.
I just wanted to talk about kind of the positives with everything going down right now, because I know it's hard, like organizing and being engaged and getting people engaged in this. And I was just thinking about how, like, this whole program right now is going to go down in YIG history. Like, what we're doing right now, we're going to be able to tell our kids about later. And, like, to put it in a more positive perspective, with everything kind of being in its own tornado of madness, like, just staying engaged in YIG is really important because, I mean, you may not know what you're doing, but just being at conferences or calls like this and being able to give that information to future YIG delegates and saying to someone, oh yeah, this was crazy because we had no idea what we were doing, but we did it anyway, So just kind of stay positive, because I was thinking about how, for me, I can get stressed out pretty easily with me wanting to be at every single part of YIG and every call and every L3, and knowing that no matter where I fit into YIG, as long as I'm still trying to participate, I can tell the people that I love about it, and still there's this great thing that I do and are a part of. So
thanks. Sia, you have something to add?
Yeah, so I think also another thing that we need to kind of sell to our delegations, especially for recruitment, this might be off topic just a tiny bit, but it kind of relates, is that yes, this is all virtual, but it's not like YIG is the only thing that's virtual. It's like everything else is virtual. And I think, like, especially people who have like my opinion is that we're gonna have a harder time recruiting the people who have been to in-person YIG and are wanting to come back to virtual YIG. But I think something that we need to keep in mind is, like, it's not that like just YIG is virtual. Everything is virtual. So we need to like be like, yeah, but you still need to find ways to be involved in your community, and it's still gonna be a fun experience. And I think that you should do it just because it's still gonna be fun. And sure, it's not what you're used to, but nothing's what you're used to. So would you rather just sit at home and do nothing, what you've done for the past like 6 months, or would you want to do something new and something different? And that's what YIG is going to be. And it's going to be better than just you staring at home and watching Netflix all day, which is fun. But I mean, can only watch Netflix for so long.
I think Netflix might disagree, but thank you, Sia. I think that's great. All right, I'm excited. I'm sure we'll have more questions, and we will keep digging into this, and we're going to put out some graphics and some other things where we can get some more feedback on some of the rounding out some things. All right, so then the other kind of big piece folks who I think are waiting for today are changes, program changes. And so I alluded to this before, but there are some things that we can do now that we couldn't do virtually. And then some of these changes are just things that we were already going to do. So you might not have, so this year, for whether you were in person or virtual, when we first did your assignments for legislative, we actually, we kind of test ran this senator allocation system. And so we are going to roll out for moving forward for youth and government, this senator allocation system for legislative delegates. So the first thing that's going to be different is that when you sign up to do youth and government, you're not going to pick, do you want to do House or Senate? You're just going to say, I'm going to be in legislative. You're going to write a bill. That's what you're going to sign up to do. And then every delegation based on size is going to get one or two senators allocated to them for each of the three colors. And so what this allows us to do is make the Senate now is a little more prestigious, right? Your delegation is only going to get one or two senators in red, white, and blue. So you could have a minimum of 3, a maximum of 6. But so it's more prestigious, you get to be in the Senate, but also it's a lot more responsibility. So, and this is going to go in a little bit to the second part, which is senators are really now going to kind of be responsible for knowing a lot more about the legislation from their delegation, because they are going to be the person in the Senate sponsoring that legislation. And so it'll be based on delegation size. You'll sign up for legislature, and then your advisors will just fill out a form at some point during the registration process that says, these are my senators. And we're also experimenting with on registration how it's going to look for you to say, these are my senators, and then I've got 10 legislative kids who are upperclassmen, so these are the 5 ones that I want in red, and these are the 5 I want in white. So we're experimenting with how can we make sure that the senator that's assigned to red is also the senator that knows which kids are going to be assigned to the red house, and so which bills they're going to kind of be watching. So we're working with that a little bit. I promise you right now it won't be perfect. It won't always line up exactly like we want it to, but we will do our best to make it work. So that's the first major change. The second change, and this goes into it a little bit, we did this at the virtual conference kind of as an initial way to help kind of break the ice virtually in a debate, where the author of a bill or an amendment was the first recognition. This is also true to form in the legislature, right? When a bill is sponsored by a senator in Michigan Senate, the bill is introduced by that senator, and they're the first person to talk on it. So this is an ode to realism, but also we think, especially virtually, an opportunity to help debate get flowing. So this is true for bills and amendments. You know, when we open a bill, the presiding officer or the chair will simply say, is the author present? And then if the author's not present, you go to that secondary sponsor. So it's a House bill and we're in the Senate, the lieutenant governor says, you know, is the senator present who represents this bill? And then, you know, if there is no one, right, it's the bill authors and co-sponsors are in red and we're in the blue legislature, then we'll just move on to the next step of debate. But it's a Parley Pro change that we are excited about, is true to form, and we think helps debate a little bit. And then in committee, after that happens, we now are we're going to edit the parliamentary procedure again to add in the expert witness time. So after the author or sponsor of the bill speaks, there's going to be an allotted spot for an expert witness. So that, again, this was something we did virtually because it just made it the Partly Pro less cumbersome. But instead of suspending the rules and wondering if there's a lobbyist, the chair is just in committee is just going to say, is there an expert witness present? And they're going to be allowed to, the lobbyists and the governor's cabinet folks are just going to be allowed to stand up and say yes or no. And they're going to, and they're just going to step in. So no rule suspension. And it's an automatic consideration in committee only, because lobbyists don't speak on the House and Senate floors. So when we're talking about GovCab on the House and Senate floors, rule suspension will still apply there. This is only for committee. And then the final one is that NIF presiding officer being elected at fall conferences. As we said, we're going to elect 2. Right now, we're just going to say it probably is going to be a similar rotation to the way speakers and lieutenant governors rotate. But we're reserving the right to change that depending on how much interest there is, how many candidates there are, all of those things. So those are the big ones. Questions? I can't see the pursuit window. There it is. All right, I'll leave it up. Go ahead, Leanne. You're still muted. Yep, here, I can try to offer it up.
No.
Oh, there you go.
The rule about authors speaking first and then senators sponsoring, is that also going to be true in middle school?
We hadn't discussed it, but yes, I think so. I think our thought is just to have it be the same.
Yeah. Consistency across the board would make the most sense.
John?
Yeah, so I guess neither of them are really questions. Just something that came to mind with the expert witness. I don't think governors should be allowed in without rule suspension. Like GovCab members, sure, but I think we should still require governors to have rule suspension.
Okay.
And then also, I think one of the benefits of the senator thing, of having an allocation of senators, and this is me speaking kind of as a delegate, not at all as governor, is I think it could increase the number of bills that get through based on feasibility, because oftentimes one of the problems with, like the biggest problems with bills that get to the governor's desk is they're not feasible, and like they're great bills, but it's like you need a funding mechanism and there's just no funding mechanism. And so if the senators are kind of more, if it's kind of this prestigious position where you have spent some time in ledge before and then you are a senator, that can help make sure that bills that get passed are feasible and really ready to be signed. So those are my thoughts. I don't know.
As people think about their other questions, I didn't put it on the slides because I haven't really thought about it, but 2 years ago, we started specifically the docketing process for committees. And so we will continue that again, virtually. That's actually a lot easier. And we learned a lot about how to do it virtually that we're really excited about. And then if the conference is virtual, docketing will also belong to the presiding officers in the House and the Senate. I think that if we're in person and we're more traditional, I think we can go back to, letting students stand up and say they want bills to be opened on the House and Senate floors, but virtually docketing ahead of time just makes sense because it allows for schedule changes and for people to know when they need to be there. So if we are virtual and for middle school, docketing will be in the hands of chairs and presiding officers.